Hello and welcome to this new video. This is going to be quite a long video because I'm going to try to explain in details all the features of Riffendium X, our new library for Kontakt 5.8.1 or above. So first off, I'd like to clarify that Riffendium is a loop instrument, not a playable instrument. So using the provided loops and editing them is the best way to work with it. We also included some snippets, some little parts that you can put together to create your own loops like chords or legato notes or transitions or power chords. So for the most basic kind of rhythms, you can compose from scratch. But we suggest using the loops that we provided and editing them to your heart's content. And truly, with a massive amount of loops that we recorded, you really have a wealth of content from which you can find something that is very close to your vision for the song you're working on. So having said that, here is Riffendium X. We have a few key switches here, and it's important to note that because you're going to work with key switches all the time with Riffendium X. So from the left to the right, we have these first ones here from the key number 12, or you could say C-1, till B-1. These are the key switches that change the key of the loops that you're playing. And we are going to see later on how we can do that and what that actually means. This green key switch is starting from C0 to G0. They are the key switches that changes the scenes. Scenes are all the parameters that you store for the sequences and loops that you have used in the two sequencers, which we are going to see later on. You can recall those parameters using these key switches. And that means that you can change the loop type and the sequences time, the duration of the loops and the durations of the regions of loops that you're using with these key switches in a way that you can compose very articulate guitar parts. And also you can create different sections for your song. So it's not just one loop with Riffendium X, it's 8 scenes, and each include all the available loops edited and composed into sequences the way you like. Then we have these 3 key switches, what is this called, purple ones. This will trigger specific mappings that many of the included performances have. So we compile different mappings for all the recordings we made for the majority of the loops included. Then we have the red area from E1, and this is the playable area. So when you use Riffendium X, you don't actually trigger chords. You just play 1 or maximum 2 notes at a time, and we will see why later on. And then you have the blue area of key switches. These are the ending notes. We recorded some chords and power chords in different velocity layers, so you can, with Riffendium X, finally add an ending note to your song if you require it. Let's listen to Riffendium X. This is the first sound when you open Riffendium X. This is the way it sounds, the first patch, which is called Ambient Simulated Arpeggio. And I must say there is a difference between the presets that we saved as snapshots, which you can find them here, and the presets we are gonna see, which are recallable in the interface, like rig presets or sequence presets. There is a difference, and we are actually gonna see the first difference just now. When I play the patch the way it comes, it sounds like that. So if I keep it down, it continues repeating the same loop, unless I change notes. So we have the rig here, the rig menu, The rigs are presets that recall a specific sound which we created by choosing a specific guitar type, stomp box, amp, and a specific amount of reverb or delay. So when I recall any sound like this, let's go to Lush Clean, you see this warning here, which basically is telling you this rig preset is including an impulse response, and you can see the impulse response if you go to the effect page, in this case called Rig Lush Clean, and the convolution reverb here is set to 100% wet and 0% dry, in order for this impulse response to affect totally the overall sound of this patch. This impulse response might include some ambience or reverb, but it mainly includes a specific EQ curve which affects the whole patch. The warning that you read, let's load it again, let's just go again to Lush Clean. This warning is basically telling you there is this impulse response. So if you want to create a sound from scratch, bear in mind that there is this sound affecting the overall patch. If you don't want it, just take it off. So you just go to the master convolver, you can switch it off or choose any other impulse response which is not a rig impulse response, and set these parameters of dry and wet according to your requirements. So let's go back to the main page. Let's listen to this Lush Clean. And by the way, this warning after a while can kind of bother you. So you can go to the options page and disable that warning. So when you go back and load it again, for example, it's not there anymore. So now it will sound like this. Or we can get to something totally different like breakup. And you also see when I change the rig, of course, the picture of the guitar changes as well, because that's the guitar we used in this patch. We have a total of 12 guitars, and each of them can have a maximum of 6 pickup positions. So a lot of different sounds. Some guitar might not sound too different from others, but there is a variety. You will probably find the sound you need. Or even something like this one. It's got a massive reverb. I could go back to the original sound by loading again the snapshot ambient simulator arpeggio, and this way I have a Telecaster again, so that's the sound we had originally. So you can hear that this loop, which is one of the almost 300 loops that we recorded, can assume different sounds from distorted to clean, very reverby and dry, but also can assume different types of guitar sounds. And that's very important because in the previous versions of Riffendium, we recorded each loop with a specific guitar, and then that loop was stuck with the sound we recorded. But now actually you can change any loop that you need for your composition, and the guitar that you have chosen will be able to play all those loops. So that's a massive improvement. So you can do the whole song with the same guitar, and then maybe you can also repeat it with a different guitar to have like a double track or something like that. But having said that, we have also a double track function in Riffendium X, and there are other videos that show it a little bit. Now that I have this guitar, I can have other loops. So for example, I could just go to the sequence page, and here there are some sequence presets. So when I click here, I will have just the sequences changing, but the sounds will remain the same. So let's see, we have this. Now I feel that for this kind of pattern I have too much reverb, so I can just go here, remove a little bit, or maybe just choose a reverb which is less long and see. And also I could reduce a little bit the delay amount. So now when I go back to my sequence, so let's, for example, also see how we actually have to properly trigger the loops. Let's say we are in a DAW, and actually I'm here in Logic Pro, and I have already a drum loop set at 85 BPM here. This is my Riffendium track. I could actually write it. Riffendium X. Now, when I trigger the loops, I have to make sure that the first one is as much as possible on time, in sync, and I must not play sloppy. I can always quantize it, but it's important that if I choose to quantize it, I quantize only the first one that I play. The next notes that I play will have to be as precise as possible, but they can be also a little bit before the beat. That wouldn't be a problem, because the chords that I'm gonna play will follow the timing of the first key that I play. If this sounds a little bit convoluted, it will be clear in a second. So if I'm gonna record these 4 chords that I was playing earlier, but I'm gonna record them with the drum loop so we can see actually what's gonna happen. Let's close for a second Riffendium. I can see the first one is not perfectly on time, so I'm going to put it on time. Now, all the others, you can see that they are not on the beat. They are a bit earlier. I played them like that on purpose to show you that even if that happens, the sequence will play on time. This is happening because the sync is provided by the very first note, which, as I said, needs to be perfectly on time. Then, if I bring back Riffendium X, all the following regions of these loops, let's call these parts regions, will happen following the grid. So even if I was playing this chord much earlier, this will only change on this bit. So we can see, like here I have set my grid to 2/4, but if I was setting it to 1/4, you will see that the whole sequence is lasting for 2 bars, so 8 of these quarter subdivisions, so 2 bars. In fact, when I play, I have my first bar here, second bar here. So the chords could change every time a new region here is set. I decided to play different chords on the first region and on the third region. I could have changed the chords every 2/4, so here, 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 and make this chord progression even faster. Actually, I could just do that. I'm gonna just delete this for a sec. And let's close this. And let's record it much faster. 2, 3, go. So as I did before, I just go in and quantize the very first one. You can see that all the others are not on the beat, but because the chord change happens in the sequence of Riffendium X at this point, then the chord is bound just to change at this part. So the first note sets the sequence in motion, and then all the other notes, all the other keys that you play will just set the pitch whenever you need to change the chords or the note in your sequence. And I suggest that you set the first note on that group perfectly on time. You quantize it if you can, so you can be sure that this sequence will be tight. Another way to make the sequence tight is to use a little bit of the negative delay. So I could show you this just by going, let me move this a little bit here. In Logic, you do it like that. You just select the region and then put this like to -3 ticks. By doing that, we kind of bypass the peak effect because we include in some of the loops the initial sound of the peak. So you might find some loops that might feel a little bit too laid back. You can just correct them by using the negative track delay. It would sound like this now. Which is much tighter, a little bit more urgent, but it's up to your taste. So far we saw that we can have one sound for all sequences, and we can have many sounds playing the same sequences. So this way you have a lot of potential to create great guitar parts. When I mentioned before the red keys, which are the playable area, I also said that we can use 2 fingers sometimes to play. It's because we have this option here, which is called Unequal or Equal Notes Mode. Now we are in Equal Notes Mode, which means that the 2 sequences will follow the keys that I am playing. When I am in unequal, now this turns to yellow. It means that this sequence, which at the moment is the only one we are using, will only receive the pitch information from the yellow keys that we press. In this mode, we always have to start the sequence by triggering it with 1 red key, and then the following notes, as we are going to see later, so don't worry if now it sounds a bit confusing, all the following notes for the lower sequence, the pitches will be triggered by the red keys, and for the higher sequence, the pitches will be set by playing a yellow key. This is just an anticipation of what I'm going to show you later. But the takeaway is that when you are in the equal notes mode, you just need to press 1 key and both sequences will follow. When you are in unequal mode, the keys are split in red and yellow. The keys that will trigger the loop are the red ones, and then the yellow and the red one will contribute in changing the pitches of the low and the high sequence. Now, you were hearing that just by pressing 1 key, you can see different chords triggered. So how does Riffendium know that I wanted to play an A minor and then a C major? Why didn't it play major chords for all the keys that I played, or just minor chords? It's because we recorded all modes of all major keys for all the loops. So it's 300 loops multiplied by all the scales, multiplied by all the modes. We have almost 13,000 loops recording, so it's a lot of work. But this means that if I set my root key to C, for example, the way it is set now, it can be set in any other key, but I just choose C's because everybody knows C major, it's all the white keys on the piano, not in contact. When I press the C note, I will be triggering a C major chord. If I press a D note, I will trigger a D minor chord because D minor is the second mode of the major scale of C. The E note will trigger a E minor, F will trigger F major, G will be G major, A will be A minor. So this way you just play one note, and if you set your root correctly, you will have all the chords that you need in that section following the key that you set. So you can also hear that some of the chords, like the first one, it sounds like a proper major chord, but then the second region here, it sounds different. It's not a major chord anymore. Sounds to me like a sus2 or something like that. That is because not only we recorded all the modes of the major scale for all the scales and all the roots, but we also recorded variations of chords for each mode. I'm going to quickly show you this. If I click on the velocity table here, this will appear. It's just a helper, it's very fast, but when you work with it, it lasts longer. Basically, it shows you that for this particular loop, we recorded bar chords, 7th and 9th chords, sus2 chords, sus4, and also power chords. So what that means is that for each of these regions, you can have a different variation of the same chord. So for example, for this, I'm going to have a sus2. So I am here in the region of sus2. Here I would be from 0 to this threshold, I would be just bar chords, which has been major and minor triads. From here till there, I will be triggering 7/9 chords. This one would be sus2, so I want to have a sus2. And this one I want to have a major, but here I want to have a sus4. Make sure here I have just a bar chord. So if I just press my C note, I will hear that actually the chords are changing. Not only that, but you can hear that every time it plays, the actual performance is not quite exactly the same. There is something that is more human happening. It's because not only we recorded all the modes of all the major scales in all the roots with a lot of variations for each, we also recorded a lot of round robins, to the point that for some of the power chords we have 128 repetitions for each power chord. For phrases like this, we have 4 round robins max for each different variation. But for other articulations like the single notes, we ended up having 64 or 128 round robins. So we did this because we really wanted to have an instrument that never sounds robotic. I hope we achieved that. So now I actually could, for example, since I am in C major now, if I was actually to play in E flat major, you see E flat, I'm using these key switches here, so E flat will trigger E flat root. Now it will be... So you have the same type of chords from major to sus4, sus2 and then back. But now by pressing the C key, I'm actually hearing a C minor chord. So I could do some different and so just basically modulate from any major scale to all the other major scales. And bear in mind that since we are talking about modes, if I, for example, wanted to play an A minor, I just set the root to C and play my A key. And now all of a sudden I can do a song in A minor. And by the way, since I am in A minor, if I wanted to have at some point an E major dominant, which would turn this scale into an harmonic minor, at that specific point when I want to have the E, what I do, I'm going to press the A note, which is the root, which would have the E as a 5th degree or as a dominant. So this E would sound like an E dominant. And I would maybe just have a 9th and 7th, so it really sounds dominant. Now I'm in C, and you will see that I'm gonna change, if I can with the mouse, on A at the right point, and then go back to C to have my A minor again. So C. So you see, every time I was playing the E, it was sounding major with the 9th and the dominant 7. So you can do these things and get more than just a major scale out of Riffendium X. Okay, so next thing, let's see how we can place these regions or loops in the Riffendium interface. So I'm going to reset the whole thing. I just do this, and I reset also the arts, which arts we call arts the loops, basically articulations. So execute, so now I have nothing there. And we can access the browser to see all the type of loops we recorded by just pressing any of those magnifying glasses. Bear in mind that if I choose, for example, this magnifying glass, the loop that I will be loaded in this specific slot. So we have 8 slots, 4 for the low sequence and 4 for the high sequence. There is a reason why we have 2 sequences. We are going to see it very shortly. So let's go to the browser. The browser shows all the different category of loops that we recorded. So basic, power chords, chords, legatos, transitions, the snippets, ostinato and riffs, connective and rhythmics. Let's go with something basic. I'm gonna load power chord, which has a duration of 8. You see that I press this one and you can hear what's available. You can, I'm gonna press it again. And I can just switch off the playback just by clicking on X. When I click on it, I will see this info. It tells me the name, the type is a power chord, and the duration of this loop, and its range. Because For many of the loops, we recorded a really wide range, as much as we could on the physical guitar. For some other riffs and patterns, we record a little bit less, but this will tell you what the range is. If, for example, you find like a rhythm, like something, this one. Okay, let me stop it there. That says that the range is just from E1 to E2. So from here till there. Whenever you press any other key, it will trigger the same notes, regardless of what octave you're playing in. So let's go back to the basic power chord. What else we have? It's played in 4 velocity: muted, soft, muted, loud, sustain, soft, and sustain, loud. And we can hear it when we press it. So you can hear that there are these different variations of velocity. In diatonic mode, the 7th degree of the scale will trigger a sharp 5 power chord to stay within the scale. So basically, when you are in C major and play a B note, that B will not trigger a normal power chord, which would consist in B and F sharp, while it will play a B and G, which is like the 5th with the 3rd on the bass. We will see. Because if we play the F sharp, it would go outside the scale of C major. To load this power chord, I just press OK here. And you see it's loaded automatically here on that slot. Now, if you wanted to get out from the browser, you can just press X. But if you want to load other articulations in other slots, you just can select the slot here and add whatever you want and press OK. I'm not going to do it just because I want to just load the power chords for the moment. So I cancel by doing that. And the power chord is loaded, but I still see nothing here in the sequence because I have to populate the sequencer myself. Bear in mind, I purposely loaded this on the low sequence for a reason. So now I can set my loop, which, as you remember, it's 1/8 long. So if these are all 16 notes or 16 steps, when I click on here, if I want to make it 1/8, I will have to change my duration to 2, which means 2 16 notes. So now this is actually the only loop I actually have. So now, at this point, if I want, I can make this loop as long as I want. So now when I play, it's playing a longer region, but this could be useful if I just want to have this going. But if I want to have some sort of dynamics or changes within this rhythm, I will have actually to set it, to set in my sequencer some shorter, I will have to set some shorter regions in my sequence. So for example, I could have the same thing as before, like instead of 32 16 notes like that, I actually could press this and it puts a note every 1/8, respecting the original duration of the loop. This way now, the loop doesn't sound different, but the advantage I have is this one. Now I can change the chords wherever I want. I cannot change it every 16 notes, but I can change it every 1/8 because that's how the sequence has been set up now at the moment. So there is a change of region every 1/8 of the bar. So you might be hearing some of my keys noise, but don't mind them. So this way you can change chords because there is a change of regions. Now, what if I wanted to have some chords a little bit louder with a louder dynamic? I can do that. See, this variational loop has like 5 dynamics. So I can have this one very strong at the beginning and then give accents. Taro, do, taro, do, taro. So I have my first. And I could continue and do it also in the second half, but by just pressing this button, I can copy the first half, the first bar, onto the second bar. So. And maybe actually I want to have mutes here, so mute loud instead of, oh sorry, not this one, this one. And if this one feels a bit annoying to have this one appearing, once you know kind of the level, you can just disable it by pressing this E. So now I can just adjust this one the way I like, and then I copy it onto the second one. So now. So at this point, I can have my sequence and change the chords the way I want to. If I wanted instead to have the same as before, like for example, I'm just going to do the one bar like that. I cannot change the chord. I can only wait until the new region is starting, so I cannot change that. So I have to go back and do the whole thing, but I could just and like this, I can just go to option and say use the default duration for each, which is what we recorded, so I don't have to do anymore I have to use anymore the duration slider here. So so now. Now, I played totally out of time on purpose. You might believe that or not, but now when I put back again my first notes on time, and as I said, if I can do maybe this every 4 bars, it would be useful. Maybe you cannot quite see the whole thing here. Okay, now better. And so this would be again on time, and this one again on time, because I want to have specific changes here. Now you need to have all these notes in a legato mode, so they need to overlap. If they don't overlap, then the following note needs to be quantized. Oh, actually, I should quantize also this one. So you see, let's quantize it like 1. So I can leave the gap here if you want, even though I don't want to hear a gap, but it doesn't have to be legato because the following notes is quantized. Okay, this one I exaggerated. I went. Now, as I said, you can use the negative track delay. But I find it best that it's the closer you can get each note, not to leave any 16 gaps. The gap can be like smaller than any 16. That would be fine because the loop will continue and cover that. we are in equal notes mode, which means that if I had anything set on my higher sequence here, the yellow one, it would still follow the notes that I'm triggering in the red area. So let's do that. I'm going to put some of these same power chords on the higher sequence. So I'm going to load, for example, here the exact same articulation. Yes, boom, so the same one. I'm going to place the regions on the high sequence where I want to have the accent that I had before here, the one with higher velocity. So I'm going to just put it there. And you see that now I have two notes. I don't want to have that. So I'm going to press this button. And then when I do this, this takes place. So it's a little bit faster. So I'm just going to do this for all the accents. And as you've seen before, since I've done my first bar, now I can press this. And it's going to be copied to the second bar. Now, it should sound the same if I play the sequence. Oh, one thing I forgot, and it's good that I did forget, is that these velocities now are just default position. But if I want to trigger the higher dynamic of the power chords, I can just use this button here, which is on the layer I'm using here, which will set all the velocity at the same value of the first step. So, boom, all like that. So that's another advantage of using the two sequences. For example, if I want to adjust this velocity here, like that, now that these notes are separate from this one, I can just use this one and they will all adjust. That was a micro adjustment, but still. So now if I play my sequence, so at this point you see that it sounds the same. So why would I want to have two sequences if I can achieve the same result with one? There is a very good reason. Now at this point we are playing different chords, but let's just focus on one chord at a time. Since, as I said, we are in equal notes mode, both sequences will be triggered just with one note on the red keys, and they are all red at this point. But if I press this, the sequence will become yellow and my keyboard will be split in two colors here, red and yellow. And the split point is decided by this control over here. So what I can do now is I can trigger the pitches of this sequence over here, the higher one, with my yellow keys. And I can trigger the pitches of the lower sequence with the red keys. And the start of the sequence will be triggered by the red keys. So if I know that I want to have, for example, A playing for the high notes, for the high sequence all the time, just the A, I just trigger the A now. I can do it here, or I can record it also in my sequence. And then whenever I play my red keys, have the pitch of the high sequence following the note that I set with my yellow keys. So now if I were to change keys with the red, so I can do actually now, I can do another sequence like that, 1, 2, and I'll be changing the red keys. And I'm going to quantize only the first, maybe this one, just to be sure. as you can hear, the sequence, the yellow sequence is just following the one note that I pressed at the beginning, while the red sequence is following all the notes that I triggered. And to be sure, since we are in a do, I should actually record that high note, 2, 3, and I just play there, doesn't matter. So as long as every time I trigger it, it will be triggered. If I just change this note, like into a C, okay, so now every time I play this sequence, and maybe I'm just gonna remove this delay, or just put it down on amount, and then I'm gonna change guitar and just use this one and change amp. Let's hope it's not too loud. Let's hear. So you can see now that it makes sense having two sequences because they follow totally different pitches, even though the red keys are still triggering both of these loop sequences. I can also do a different thing. I can just, for example, having one long note here and changing these notes. So if I do that, the yellow sequence will follow all these notes here, and the red sequence will follow just one note there. So I can create some ostinatos, like in hard rock, where we have some high notes, high power chords that are changing when there is one fixed ostinato note in the low range of the guitar. But I can also just move the way I want, like just like that. And do very articulate rhythms. Now, so far, the yellow keys here are playing just the octave that I'm playing here, but what if I wanted to play the same low notes, but just change? I can just set here a lower octave for the yellow keys, so now I will have this. Now, I'm going to speed up a little bit the sequence, go to like 105, and maybe get a more powerful loop. Okay, let's just reset, but not the articulations. I just want to keep the articulation, and I'm going to just populate again the lower sequence. If I play it again, it's just... And I want to make it maybe again like with some accents. It doesn't have to be something amazing, but something like that. I'm going to copy so it sounds like this. Now I have these pitches over here. These are not transposers. These are values that will recall a different recordings, a different loop mapped at a different key. So, for example, if I set this one to 3 and then this one to 5, this is what I hear. And I'm gonna copy it again. Oh, we can just do that. Something like that. At this point, I can have these very fast changes in between my loop, and I don't have to get crazy by changing very fast my key switches. And I created a little riff there that could be useful. And I don't have really to play much, just one key. Now, what happens when I go on the C? The intervals are the same. So basically on the C I will have again the interval of a third minor, so 3 semitones. So if I play in C major or A minor, when I go there it just sounds not okay. So in the options I can choose the follow scale on the step pitches behavior. So if I go back there now, when I play the C, it's like as if this was not a 3 semitones interval, but a 4 semitones interval. So this way we can have several pitches in this type of rhythms, like with power chords, and have fast note changes, and they will also respect the tonality that we've chosen. Now, this is good for power chords or single notes like that. It's not meant to be a way to create articulated solos or difficult riffs, but it's just a way to create these little variations. It's not meant to be used with chords or with more complex loops, because it will not work. But for this type of things, okay, let's see what else we can do with this. I'm gonna load a kind of an ambient type of rig, or actually I'm gonna do it from scratch so we can see what else we can do. So let's reset everything here. Yes, everything, also the art, so everything is clean. Let's choose a different guitar. Let's go with a Strato. Here it is. Let's go with a clean amp. Maybe just something like that. Now there is no sequence, so I cannot really hear what I'm doing, but let's just put some long notes here. There. Yes, and also here I put the same long note there. So I set one long note there, one there, one there, and one there. And you can see I have 2 notes on top of each other. Let's use unequal. And then let's make this sustain loud for all of them. So there, and just because I can, I just press that button. So now I could hear my sound that I have so far. It's just one simple note. The amp I was doing, I can use some chorus. Oh, it's already there anyway. And I can put a little bit more of reverb, like something cloud reverb, and more delay. So I am in unequal notes mode, which again, it means that I can trigger the low and high sequences independently. So I can do things like this. Oh, wait, I have to have the octave. use sustain soft for the lower. And actually I could do 2/4 for the top one. So now if I select it like that, and I could maybe make it enough soft. Or maybe I could have something faster. So now if I set them all up like that and be kind of soft again, you can do something like this. So if you notice what I was doing with the mouse, it starts sounding a little bit more like a playable instrument, even if we made that big disclaimer at the beginning. It's not a playable instrument, but you can do things like this. So basically, this is possible because of the two sequences that we included in Riffendium X. So you can have bass and low parts working together. And you can also improvise with it and be creative and make different melodies. So, for example, if we were actually using an ostinato here. And so on. Another thing you could do, going back to the single notes, for example, basic, there. If I have, for example, equal note, but this one I put it up a third. And a 2 octave higher. I have pitched the higher sequence an octave higher, but also I am transposing sort of a third here. So at this point, just by being on the equal note mode, triggering one note, I have like a harmony there, which is quite nice. Okay, we saw at the beginning that we have different parts. Let's clean up everything. We have different parts for each articulation. Let's go and explore that. For example, let's get a riff. Okay, let's... And now, no. Okay, let's get this one. Winglet. And now let's reduce a bit the reverb And the delay, let's just get a play. And let's add a little distortion overdrive at the beginning. So I select the first stomp, just to use this one. The screamer, not too much drive. And we set something on the sequence. Now, if we go back to Winglet, we see that it says that it has part A, B, C mapped in velocity layers. So I'm hearing only one repeated. It's because I need to get again to the velocity and just select the part that I want. Maybe I do A, B, A, C and see if it works. So it's fun already like that, but I'm gonna mix it with other parts. Let's add a connective. Connectives are special articulations that create a kind of riff, solo, or pickup at the end of a bar to get onto the next one. So you see that this, for example, has two different parts going down and going up. So I'm going to choose that one. And I'm just going to put it at the very end of I'm going to put it here. It's so nice, sounds like this. And you notice that this says phrase three quarters. So actually I should have put it here and it would have sounded like this. But if I want, I can just put a little part of it. Sorry, just got the wrong one. Part of it. And actually I'm going to put it, make sure that is 1/16 here. And I'm going to put it here, just a little part of it. And then I'm going to put it here. And at this point, actually, I'm going to use the upwards version of it, while this one is the downwards version. So, or I can do the opposite and see if it plays better. Now, the advantages of the high sequence is that I can also change the start point of my regions here. So actually I'm going to click on this number, and at this point this sample start editor appears, and I can preview the part that I have chosen. And bear in mind, since this duration here of the region I'm using is less than the total duration of the loop, then I will be able to change the start point using the sample editor. So if I want to hear this part, let's just hear. It sounds like this. Or I can choose maybe another portion. Or maybe... I like actually this one. I can close the sample and it will remain the way. And this will work if I change chords. So you have a lot of possibilities here. Another thing I can do is to use automatic variations of my sequence. Now, this will introduce some variations. Sometimes the variations are more drastic, sometimes are less drastic. So I can do this in two ways. Since I'm in this page, I can go here and create a variation by clicking on here, or I can press this one and it will do the same. So let's see what happened now. And I can do it one more time and see if And by the way, let's keep this one here, copy and paste it on B and paste, including the articulations. So now I have two identical phrases. I go back to A and create another variation. So I have this. But I want to start with the part A. And then I have part B. At this point, I can start with A, which is corresponding to this key switch here. And then when I want, I can just change the key switch here. Let's see if I can do it with a mouse. So I can have up to 8 scenes, and as you can see, the scenes can have different articulations. It doesn't have to be the same. I can be just like, for example, copy this onto the third one, just because it's easier doing like that. Yes. And then I can change. I can just take this one and just use a... Let's see how it sounds with this. And if I want to have instant variations, I can go to this question mark over here. Basically, I have only the CP chroma articulation only at this point here. But by pressing this one, the script will give me another variation, another articulations, which is kind of similar. Basically, it's taken from the same category. Or another one. Then maybe I can change this one and see what happens. Cool. And now I can basically go from A I can change in between. And this way I've really a lot of variations. So we have seen that we can basically adjust the length and the portion and the start point of the longer articulations. That's another advantage of the high sequence. And now, if you're looking at that, for example, let's adjust this one again. If I click on that, as I said, we can change the sample start. And now you can see that actually the graphic is changing here to show what part of the articulation we are using. This is for the version 1.02 of Riffendium X. So if you still have the first version, the 1.00, please update using Pulse Downloader application to do that. And so you will see that the graphics are actually updating when you do that. So let's keep it there and see what happens. Maybe I can change this or not. So you've seen that I am actually changing here on the fly this articulation from part A to part B, but there is another way. I can use the pitch bend. The pitch bend, according to its position, will trigger all the different parts according to where you actually place the pitch bend. So I'm going to do it with the mouse so you can actually see it. Have a look at this articulation over here, what happens. So remember that, and now it sounds different. I can do it with all the articulations that I have several parts. So this one, actually, let's go to a different one, paste again the same one, and now make all the same. So they sound identical, but with a pitch bend, I can just make them sound different. So you see, you have this additional real-time improvisational tool. As I said, this works only for the articulation that have different parts or dynamics. Basically, we could also, let's clean up this and that. We could actually load a power chord again, load it. Now we put every step to its length. And now I can use the pitch bend. So you can automate that, record the pitch bend movements and do dynamics on the fly as well, which is quite cool. Also, let's look at what else we can do with the longer parts. For example, let's go to a rhythm. Let's load this one and let's set it. If I play it, I'm gonna set just normal bar chord. Now, since I placed these regions this way on the first and second bar, I would be just bound to change the chord there. Or if I wanted to change it here and placed my second region over here, what would happen is that the region starts again from here. So I don't want that. I want to keep the rhythm shape the way it is, but I want to be able to change the chords where I want. And it's probably like I want to change it here. But this region arrangement that doesn't allow me to do that, unless I split this region into different parts, maintaining the rhythm. I do that by placing this cursor here, where I want my chord to change. You see this kind of very faint line tells me it's right there. And then I'm going to split it by pressing this button over here, the scissors. At this point, you see that this new region has been created the start point is 11th 16th note of the loop, and if I just keep the same note, nothing will change. But if I change my note in this point over here, and that's on that step, and I want all of them to be major and minor, so I'm just going to adjust the velocity of all of them at once, like so. So this way, I can actually split my longer regions into sub-regions, and the rhythm will be maintained, and now I can change the chords wherever I need to. And I can do it also for the second bar. I could also split this to achieve different effects. So basically, if I go there, I can just choose a different point, like that. And so maybe I could create actually a new rhythm by just adding one there, and make sure it's just 1/16 here, so I'm not gonna mess up anything over there, and add another little region there. Maybe I could do a melody like this. And so now it's slightly different, and it might be closer to what you need for your song. Let's close this, reset. Then let's get to another type of rhythm like this. Okay, so I'm gonna set it. So I'm in C major and I'm playing an A. But if I wanted to do something a little bit more British with one chords, I can just split it here and duplicate it. Boom. Then, by using this scale options, I'm going to select variation 1. Now, if I go back to Teen Rock in the browser, it tells me that in variation 1, all dominant chords are mapped. So So you see, now I can have this type of mood with all dominant chords, or I could have all major chords. And I can quickly switch between these modes by using these key switches here. So this way I'm diatonic, so minor, then all dominant, all major, normal. I can have even more variations because of the mapping. I could do this also by changing the root keys, but it would be a little bit more cumbersome and too many key movements at the same time. But this way, it's quite fast to achieve different moods. And so you always have to look for the description here, the info. Now, I haven't been using this one yet, but you can just click X here and delete the articulation for this layer only. There are a few other things that I didn't show about the sequencer. Let's just load a riff. Now, let's say I want to maybe delete something here. I can press my cursor here and delete. And now the following region, it's been moved. I don't know if you notice, I'm going to do it again. This is classic. So I want to delete this region. I just place the cursor at the beginning of the region and then press this button. And the following region has moved now to cover this gap. Of course, if I want, I can leave it for the whole length, or it can be shorter. And then I can put something else there if I want to. And now it's a different riff, slightly. I can also insert here a little gap if I need it to insert something else. I can insert something else here, like there, and maybe make two. And now, one thing actually, when we go back to the sample start editor now, you see that this phrase is 2/4. The duration here says 8/16 notes. The sample start editor is warning me and said that the articulation's duration is beyond editable range. Reduce it or exit the editor. So I cannot change the start because the region length is already at its maximum. So if this one was like 4, half of it, then I can change the duration. And another thing is, this works only for the longer regions. It's not going to work for the power chords that are short and everything. And if I want to do this manually without using the sample start editor, I can just disable the I again, and then I can move this value edit like that, and you see, we just changed the start point. So the same way for the velocity, when this is active, the helper comes to help. But if I don't want the helper, I just deactivate that, and then I can do it freely. Well, another one thing that is very cool, let's see, let's just get another. And now I'm going to also put a simpler rhythm. I don't know if they're going to work, but let's just try. I'm playing both of them at the same time. It's a bit of a mess because I'm playing two different parts with the same guitar. If I am in unequal mode, This is still gonna be the same guitar playing the two sequences, but if I press this, now I am in dual mode. Now I have two guitars. And now I have the two guitars, which are the main guitar and the double track guitar. So I can also change every setting for the double track guitar, everything, except for the reverb and the delay, which are for the whole patch. So I can change the amp, the stomp box, and the guitar type and the pickup type for the double track independently from the main guitar. And I can also change their width. So I'm gonna make it not too separated. I have one riff, which is the bottom one, the low, which is changing because I'm triggering the red keys, while the yellow one is staying on the same note because I'm not touching the yellow keys. But the minute I touch the yellow keys, so according to what loops you're choosing, you can have different results. So I think we reached the end of this video. Please, if you have questions, if there is any confusion or anything, please write it down in the comments or write an email to us, and we'll be happy to be more clear if possible. So I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And Riffendium X is available now in our shop and many others across the world. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.